All right, so I'm taking a look at your print ad layouts, your newspaper ad layouts, and it does go without saying that if you're designing for print, that you should be making printouts and proofing in the medium that you're designing for. So just like if you're designing for the web, you're going to make sure you proof your work and make sure it's looking correct in a web browser. Or if you're doing game design, um, you're going to create a build and you're going to play the game to make sure that it's playing the way you would like. The user experience is what you would expect. Um, you're creating a video. You're going to create a video file and watch the video. And if there's anything that isn't timed right, or the sound design isn't correct, you're going to go back and you're going to correct that. So it's the same thing with print. Designing for print, it should just go without saying that you're proofing using print. And you don't need a color printer in order to proof. I mean, I'm printing out these ads just using a black and white laser printer, and I'm proofing them in grayscale. And that's really all you need, basically, because with grayscale, you're getting the same sense of color intensity or intensity of light and dark that you would in color. So, for example, in this ad, there's some body text that's a very light orange color, and it's a very correspondingly light gray on the black and white laser. So if I was designing this ad and I printed it out and I looked at it, I'd say, well, gee, that's really hard to see. I mean, there's the address information, the phone number and everything, and it's practically unreadable. Another thing is you want to check to make sure that you have the size of your text is not too large or not too small. On this ad again, if we look really closely, we can see that there's some captions, but if we kind of zoom out at a normal viewing distance, they're really, really tiny. I mean, they're almost microscopic. So if I'm proofing a print design like this, I would take a look at that and say, that's too small. I need to make those larger. So generally for a caption, probably somewhere between 6 to 7 points, depending on the font and depending on the size of the overall layout, is probably the minimum you'd want to go. And I'm not sure what these are. Maybe some of them actually look larger than others. So this one looks smaller than that one. So it's really hard for me to tell, but all I know is it's very, very small. So that's something that you could catch if you were making printouts at 100% of your print size. Another thing that you could check is just the dimensions of the page. So I've got 6 layouts here, and they all have different, almost all of them have a different ad size. So this one is correct, the one right here, and it has its black border. And if I measure that, and I've got limited space here, so I'm going to give it a shot. That is 9 3/4 wide, which is according to the specifications, and it's 7 1/4 high, which is also according to the spec. So that one's correct. This one, well, the document size looks like it's correct, but the ad size looks like it's a little smaller. So if I measure that, that one's 9.5 by 7. So that one's off. This one, that one's gigantic. That doesn't even fit on an 8.5 by 11 page. So that one's wrong. This one is also incorrect. So it looks like the document size is correct. So where the crop marks were placed is the correct size of the ad, which coincides with the document. But it looks like, again, this one has that one's kind of an odd size. It's 9.5 and something. And then the height is wrong too. And this one also looks like there's a bleed built into that, but there's no bleed on this. So this is a newspaper ad. It goes on a page It's a half page ad, so it goes on a page with other elements, type or other ads. So this doesn't have a bleed, and it doesn't it shouldn't have a margin like this. So it looks like a lot of people just built in these margins, which are not corresponding with the size of the page. And if I'm the advertiser, if I'm the client that you're designing this for, and I'm paying hundreds of dollars, maybe I'm paying $200 or $300 for a full color half size ad, then I don't want, all this extra stuff. Basically, you're designing a smaller ad, and we've got all this extra margin on the outside. So you've got to be really careful to pay attention to the client specifications. This ad actually looks like it's correct, but it's missing the correct in terms of size, but it's missing the border that was required on that. Other things that we can check for. We ought to take a look and see the different ways that people used the logo. So look at the difference in size between these two ads. The logo on one is pretty large. The logo on the other is pretty small. This one isn't even the correct client, so this one, right away, this guy, wouldn't fly. This logo is pixelated, so if you can see, it's all jaggedy. So the reason that we recreated the logo as an EPS so that it's vector art is to avoid that kind of jagged look. And then some other things like the type here that has an outline on it, or like a stroke on it. Maybe it's hard to see if you take a look. It just kind of makes a chunky font. I'm not really sure that the stroke is adding anything to it. And as long as we're looking at it, we could see this is like really hard to read here because it's kind of like a block of all caps text with not a lot of leading. And then some of these proper names like Japanese are hyphenated, so you never want to hyphenate proper names like that or anything that's stylized like this. We've got a misspelling here. Jewelry is spelled wrong. In this one, let's see, this one, there's a lot of kind of dead space on either side of this logo. So if we take a look at this, all the type is crowded in the center, and then we've got all this extra space here. And it's not that it's not good to have some extra space or white space or whatever, a little bit of place for your eye to rest. But maybe when you're thinking about your layouts, you could be thinking more in terms of a 2/3, 1/3 kind of a proportion. So maybe dividing this up. Could this logo go occupy, or logo and address information, maybe these little social icons, they could occupy 1/3 of the page, and maybe some text could be on the other third. This one is good in terms of having a focal point. So there's a large image that's a focal point, which is a good principle of design. And then there's some smaller supporting images. This is basically a 2/3, 1/3 layout. So that's actually working fairly well. I think the logo is a little bit huge on that, though. All right, so let's take a look at some of the quarter page ads.